Let's break down some of these key definitions because we don't want to make assumptions about people's understanding of what they are. Really important. Landed cost. You'll see this over and over again from an operational perspective and certainly from a financial perspective. And landed cost really comes down to the unit price for a product plus all other costs associated with shipping the product from origin to destination. So you'll recall when we talked about tariffs on goods, that's a major component of an overall landed cost calculation. So the unit price is what we pay for a product from our supplier overseas at the door of that supplier's factory. So if we're buying handbags from Vietnam, the landed cost becomes the unit cost. Let's say it's $8 per handbag for model ABC123. But what about all the other expenses associated with getting that handbag from Vietnam into a consumer's hand in Atlanta? So let's stick with our example. The purchase of women's handbag from a factory in Vietnam. So you have your price per handbag, $8 per unit. However, as we saw in our visual representation of a supply chain, truck has to come and pick up those handbags at the factory and take it to the freight forwarder's warehouse. The freight forwarder is going to engage in organizing air and ocean transportation. Of course, there's an expense associated with that, plus documentation. Things like preparing an airway bill or preparing an ocean bill of lading. Customs clearance in the United States, there's a charge. Customs duties. In Module 1, we talked about a 5% duty on socks coming into the U.S. from the Dominican Republic. Well, what if these Vietnamese handbags have a 15% duty on it? If we're trying to calculate the cost, the real cost of these goods as the importer in the United States, and we don't consider that 15% customs duty, that's a huge problem. Customs duties are a big part of landed cost calculation. And then any other costs, last hash mark here, for warehousing and trucking to final destination. The trick and the challenge around landed costs is being able to prorate all of these expenses on a per unit, or in this case, a per handbag basis. So if we have an ocean container, a 40-foot ocean container that has 10,000 handbags in it, and the ocean transportation from Vietnam to the west coast of the United States is $3,000, what does that work out to on a per unit basis? And that's related to ocean transportation, to customs duty, to local delivery. So this challenge around prorating costs for a landed cost calculation per unit was and remains a big challenge for supply chain management professionals today. Lead times, or cumulative lead time. There's a big difference between lead time and cumulative lead time. And our focus is indeed on the cumulative component. And the definition of cumulative lead time, as provided by the American Production and Inventory Control Society, is the time that transpires between the moment a need is recognized and when that need is fulfilled. So if based on our planning activities, on our forecasting activities as an importer of handbags, when we determine it's time to place a purchase order on the factory in Vietnam, that cumulative lead time clock starts ticking. We have recognized the need, and now we're taking the steps to fulfill that need. That's what cumulative lead time is. So let's continue with our handbag example. So we've recognized in March of 2016 that we're going to need handbags for the holiday season. So we need to place our order now so we have them in time. We have to send a purchase order to our Vietnamese vendor, the factory that we work with. We have to take into account and understand how long it's going to take that vendor to produce our handbags. How long is it going to take an ocean container to get from Vietnam to a warehousing and distribution center in Chicago? How long is the customs clearance going to take? What's the domestic distribution time frame? How long is the local delivery? We have to bake that into all of our calculations to understand cumulative lead times, so we're placing orders in time to receive goods exactly when we need them. So landed cost, cumulative lead time, two parts of our four-part supply chain focus. The first being product sales, and the last being inventory management. When we talk about inventory management, and we have a whole module on inventory management, we are speaking about Any and all activities associated with the valuation, acquisition, shipment, location, storage, sale, distribution, disposition, recovery, and disposal of merchandise related to the operation of a firm's business. Now that's a true mouthful there, so let's break it down a little bit. What do we mean by valuation? What is merchandise worth? How much money are we going to invest in inventory? We have to put a value on that as part of our overall strategic plan. So that's what we mean by valuation. We have to go out and acquire inventory. Maybe it's raw materials for production. Maybe it's finished goods because we're a wholesaler. Again, depends on the business model. We have to move that inventory around in shipment fashion. We have to make strategic decisions about where to locate inventory. Are we going to have a warehouse in Singapore that handles all of our business and all of our orders for Southeast Asia? Are we going to have a warehouse in southern Brazil, in Curitiba, to handle that Mercosur business that is so important to our organization? Location decisions about inventory, hugely important. How are we going to store it? Are we going to use our own warehouses or are those of third parties? Another strategic decision. The sale of goods, getting them distributed out into the market. Maybe we have a product recall, or we have goods that require test and repair, as we mentioned earlier. That's recovery. And sometimes goods have to be destroyed. Maybe it's a product recall that can't be saved, and that the goods have to be destroyed. So although an undesirable component of inventory management, something we have to take into consideration and be thinking about. In the end, the goal is to meet the customer service requirements of the company. Now, as it relates specific to inventory management, customer service means one thing and one thing only, and that's product availability in the quantity, the configuration, the packaging, and the price, and the delivery features that the customer wants. So inventory management is about making the product available to our customers. In the end, inventory management and customer service equals product availability.